Hi, I'm Sam, and this is Sam Says. Today I'm going to be taking a look at A Feast for Odin. A Feast for Odin is by Z-Man Games and is designed by Uwe Rosenberg for 1 to 4 players. Now, there is a lot to talk about with this game, and I mean a lot. And part of why is because there is so much that goes on within the game. At its base, Feast for Odin is a worker placement game, and it just gives you a board with a ton of action spaces and lets you roam free and do whatever that you would like to do. And that's kind of cool. It's really intimidating because there is one big, I guess it's actually not that big, but there's a lot of stuff on it, board that gives you all of the possible actions that you can do. I think when you start the game, you start off with about 60 to 70 possible actions that you can do. And each action requires either 1, 2, 3, or 4 workers. So what's kind of cool is it gives you almost an action progression. So you can take a specific action that you want to do and do a pretty simple version of that action, spend 1 worker, or put 4 workers down and do a super awesome, massive version of that action. And so it gives you an option of how you want to spend your workers, and not just what action you want to spend them on, but how many workers for that specific action, which is cool. So there's just a lot of stuff going on, and it gives you a lot of different options. Now, there are a lot of different strategies in this game, just a ton. And as far as I've found, they all seem to be viable. It's hard to really build an engine in this game. There's a small amount of engine building, but not a ton. It's more along the lines of, I want to do this, and so I have to take this action to be able to get the resources I need to be able to complete that action to the fullest. Or let's say I want to go and, raid. In order to do that, I have to have ships, but to buy ships, I either need silver to buy ships or I need to get wood. And so I have to go down and, go and forage for wood or, chop down trees, whatever it is. That's not an action, but it gives you the sense of that. So it doesn't allow you to just focus on, 2 or 3 actions. It still forces you to do a lot of stuff, but you can completely ignore 60% of the board and get probably everything done that you want to do depending on the strategy that you want to take. As far as I've found, there's not one strategy to rule them all. I have had more success with some strategies other than some other options. I have found they give you these 4 extra boards that are islands that you can get to add to your player board. I have not seen a lot of success with those. They seem not great. And so every time, I have taken them in several games, and every time I've taken them, I've regretted it. When looking at A Feast for Odin, the player board itself is really cool. I kind of want to talk about that for a moment, because in the player board, you have a ton of negative points. So you actually start the game, I think, with like negative 80, something along those lines. And you play a little bit of Tetris with these game pieces that you acquire over the course of the game to be able to fill in negative point slots, as well as there's a couple of places where you can get bonuses if you completely surround one single space. In addition, your full player board is how you earn income every round. So you have to completely fill up a board to the left and down of a certain spot to be able to collect that specific income, which is cool because it makes you play Tetris. From what I've heard, he actually took so long to develop this game and playtest it that he took the Tetris aspect from A Feast for Odin and applied it to Patchwork and then later on Cottage Garden. I'm glad he did that because I like Patchwork. Patchwork is a great game. I have not tried Cottage Garden yet, but I'm excited to. For a moment, I want to talk about the box. This box is huge. It's massive. It is bigger than Caverna, if you're familiar with the Caverna box. And just like Caverna, this game is packed with components. At least with Feast for Odin, I can fit everything in the box and it will comfortably close with just a minimal amount of organization. unlike Caverna, where I feel when I packed everything together, it still didn't quite want to close. So kudos to Z-Man Games on that, as well as kudos to Z-Man Games. They actually thought ahead. So with these tiles that you use mainly to put on your player board to cover up negative points and everything, they're also used for other things, but you can actually upgrade those tiles. So you can take an orange tile and transform it into the same size of a green tile or into a red tile, red to green and then green to blue, but they're all the same size. And what Z-Man Games has done is they've given you plastic organizer trays that you can actually upgrade, and you can look just in the tray and say, oh, I have this cabbage, and I can turn that cabbage into a meat. And all I do is I look, and one square, space above in this plastic container is that same piece. So Z-Man Games did a great job with that, and all those pieces are double-sided as well, so it gives you some more options. So kudos to Z-Man Games. I love that they did that. Not only is it functional for storing the game, but it's extremely functional for playing the game, so they did a great job with that. So let me finish up. I'll go to what worked and what didn't work. Let me start with what didn't work. What didn't work in this game is honestly the ease of getting into it. This is not an easy game to get into initially. Now, after you play for about 2 or 3 rounds, it's pretty intuitive. You get it. But when you first get that rules explanation and you look at all of the possible actions you can take, I honestly had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't have a clear path of what I wanted to do. And honestly, when the rules explanation got done, I was kind of looking around like, why am I playing this game? Man, I don't know what to do. You do get over that, obviously, and with further plays, that completely goes away. But I would say that is my biggest problem with this game, is it is just difficult to get into. And you're not going to want to play with people who aren't familiar with Euro games or games with more complicated rulebooks. This rulebook is one that will get a lot of use, and they give you 3 of them. So you get the main rulebook, you get the appendix, which allows you to look at these occupation cards you can acquire throughout the game and find out what they do. And also they give you an almanac, which is some pretty dry history on A Feast for Odin. Basically Viking culture, different things that you use in the game, which is interesting. I will not read it. What worked? What in this game worked? I mentioned it briefly before, but I will say what worked for me in this game is there are so many different strategies, just a ton. And like I said, I have not found one that is the end-all be-all. Not one that is like, yeah, I'll take this every time and I'm going to win every time because of it. No, I've taken different strategies and scored similar amount of points. The only thing I've seen a downfall in, and perhaps I'm not playing it correctly, is the islands. I have not seen a lot of success with that. But the reason that this is what worked for me in this game is every time I come to A Feast for Odin, the game setup is the same, so there's not really any variable setup or anything like that. But I get I can take a different strategy and have an entirely different game that I'm playing. And so there's always more for me to discover within A Feast for Odin. How can I do these actions more efficiently? What can I do? And I really enjoy that. I think that Uwe Rosenberg did a great job designing this game and making it so that there are a lot of paths to victory. And that's it. I don't want to spend too long talking about it. Those are the basics of the game. If you like heavy Euro games, you're probably going to like A Feast for Odin. If you don't like semi-complicated rulebooks that make it difficult to get into the game for the first time, then maybe this is not for you. I personally loved it. Feast for Odin is a new favorite of mine. It is actually taking the place of Caverna in my collection. The reason for that being that both of these games give me a similar feel with that heavy Euro genre, and I like Feast for Odin better. So I'm not going to keep both in my collection. Feast for Odin is going to win. But that's it. Feast for Odin. Let me know what you think. If there are any games that you want me to take a look at in the future, please let me know in the comments. I will be happy to take a look at them for you. And thank you for watching. You have a great day. I'm Sam, and this is Sam Says.